Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy Light back at it with another YouTube video. And in today's video, we're going to be doing kind of like a let's talk about Batman The Dark Knight Returns. Uh, I just want to point this out quickly too. I'm going to be talking about both the book and the movie. I know I just put in the background the movie, but I want to talk about both, seeing as though I did just read the comic and I also just watched the movie. So, yeah, without ado, let's get into it. So, yeah, Batman The Dark Knight Returns is definitely a really good comic, in my opinion. I think it's pretty good. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty fun to read and everything. I read it pretty fast as well because I really enjoyed it. That's kind of like a way you kind of see a person. Well, I don't know if it's like this for everybody, but personally, myself, I read things a lot more, like a lot faster when I really enjoy something, and I really enjoyed this. It was really good. I really enjoyed the comic, and I also really enjoyed the movie. Now, originally, I only had watched the movie back. I remember watching this back when it first came out, and I gotta say, it was pretty good. But I mean, the comic is definitely. I gotta say, there's a few minor touches from like in terms of like what they say and stuff and the nature of some of the stuff uh, in the comic that's a bit different from the movie per se. But I mean, for the most part, it's still enjoyable. I mean, it's not like terrible or anything like that. I do enjoy it a lot. And also, I won't be talking about Dark Knight Returns again because that's a big waste of time technically. And I mean, honestly, I don't really like that too much. So that's the reason why. But honestly, one thing I gotta point out too is after watching this movie, I actually wanted to see the sequel, but then I realized how trash it was, and I decided not. Like, I don't want to see that anymore. So that was one thing. Growing up, that's how I kind of I thought as like from the years like 2015, I would say 2016. I just wanted a sequel to this until I realized, oh damn, it's trash. The sequel, it had a sequel in comic book form, and it was trash. So I understand why. But anyways, enough about that. Let's start talking about this. So quickly, I want to say this too as well. I completely forgot to say it. But this isn't really a comparison. I'm not really comparing the two. I just might point out a few different things that I find pretty interesting in between the two. But honestly, let's get into it. So I gotta say, first things first, honestly, I would say that this is very good comic book writing. I gotta say, like it's hands down probably one of the better uh comic books and from like the 80s and just and so on. I think it came out in 85 or 87, 1987 or something like that. Late 80s basically. Uh and I think this is around the time where Batman was turning into a more of like a darker character. And I gotta say, this comic definitely kind of reflected it. Now I gotta say, this is like everything you would kind of want to see from a Batman, kind of like an older Batman type story, in the sense that like it was awesome to kind of see his kind of last battles, if I must say, with some of his greatest foes, even his own like superhero friend in Superman, which was really interesting as well. And that's something else that I found interesting. I gotta say though that there's one thing I dislike kind of. I wasn't a huge fan of like I guess they did it for a good showdown between Batman and Superman at the same time, so it was all right. But I feel like tying in all that unnecessary stuff. If you ever read the sequel, you would know that like there's some whole subplot to that, and I gotta say I'm not a huge fan of that. I just kind of wish it was maybe, for example, they just could have fought in each other or something like that. But I mean, that's whatever, honestly. But personally, just myself, honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of that subplot. I'm not a huge fan of that. So that's one thing I got to critique about this. But I mean, other than that, this was pretty good. I mean, I like the introduction of the mutants. I thought they were pretty interesting and well kind of layered characters. And I liked how this comic book really dived in Batman's psyche as well as the movie. They do basically do the same thing into the psyche of like Batman doesn't want to just straight up like arrest people and stuff like that. we even saw with Two-Face, he even sponsored like his rehabilitation. So that was interesting to kind of see like Batman's not always out to just be sending people to Arkham and like that he doesn't care. He is actually showing that he kind of does care. Uh, Even with that mutant stuff, I thought it was pretty interesting to kind of see him decide on taking completely fighting the mutant leader to kind of seize control of the mutants. I guess I would say I did like it a lot. Uh, Also, I've noticed this a lot. There's a lot of like political kind of I forget what the word is. This book is very much like has hidden political things in it. For example, with the sense that like it's like the government versus Batman. There's just layers into that as well. Uh, Even with like there's themes of say political themes. That's what I meant to say. There's themes of like different things. For example, like the mutants, what they wanted to do was basically seize control of the city and do whatever the hell they wanted. That was one. But Batman's like a one man type thing going against the whole thing. Even though he doesn't do this in the movie or the comic book, he did it in the sequels, so that was one thing as well. You could also see like the themes of like just complete fascism. I guess the right word is to say. In the book as well. That's something I thought was pretty interesting. So I mean I think I truly believe that this has got to be a top 10 in terms of like just writing. I mean, this would have killed as a novel. I gotta say, I would have liked to see like a not a graphic novel. I'm talking about like a written novel, no pictures or nothing like that. I think this would have been good, honestly. Uh, Another thing that I found pretty interesting as well is it kind of it didn't reinvent Batman in a sense, but I felt like it brought a more darker nature to the character as well. As you could see in the thing, he's brutally beating up these bad guys worse than he's ever done. Like he's breaking people's. He broke the guy's. What was it? I don't think it was his spine, his femur, or something like that. And that was like classic Batman right there, as well. And like he was literally throwing batarangs at people's hands and slicing through them and stuff like that. So that was one thing as well that I thought was pretty interesting as well. And I also liked like his sneaky tactics as well, which is and always like thinking ahead. For example, with the Superman thing too, that was interesting as well to see kind of thing. Uh, Now in terms of like what I've seen in terms of like comparison wise, I've noticed that in the comic it's a lot more. I'm gonna say it's a little bit more outdated. I can't even lie. It's a little bit more like there's some very dark stuff in the comic that I see that they chose to kind of like correct and kind of fix in the movie. That's one thing I actually did like. I'm not gonna say what they say in the comic book, but it starts. The mutant leader likes to say it a lot, and the mutants basically say it, and it's not very good. But yeah, it's not that it's not even very good. It's very terrible. So that's like one thing as well that I kind of liked as well. That was pretty interesting. That they kind of cut from the movie because I realized that I think the comic book is I think it might be a mature read. I'm not even too sure, but at the time they're using stuff that's kind of a little bit like darker for today's age in a sense. Not I mean it was darker still then, but I mean you don't really see that anymore that much in like comic books today. I mean, especially in something like the Batman where there's a lot of children watching and stuff like that. That's one thing. But I mean, coming from this perspective of fighting the villains for the last time, like I thought Two Face, the ending with Two Face was written pretty well. Joker as well, that was another thing. The thing I kind of dislike this again too is I felt like maybe perhaps like the Batman vs Joker thing should have been at the end instead of Batman vs Superman. I thought it was much needed to in terms of that, but I guess for more subplot, I guess they did that anyways. But I mean, it would have been just how it would be really cool to kind of see perhaps maybe like at the end we see Joker die or something like that, and then Batman like hangs up the cowl. That would be my ideal kind of thing. But of course, they probably wanted to do a sequel at the time, so they're just like, screw it, and decided to basically just do that whole thing with Superman and mutants and all that. So that's one thing. But I mean, for the most part, I did like it. I think Frank Miller, he's a pretty good comic writer. I do enjoy a lot of his comics and stuff. Of course, like sometimes it can be a miss. I can't even lie. Like sometimes it can be a miss, but I mean, this is a good example of something he's done very well. But anyways, in terms of like overall rating, I'll give the book easy 10 out of 10. Very good. Movie wise, I'll say a 9 out of 10, just cause for different reasons. But I mean, for the most part, it's pretty good. So yeah. Uh, but I mean, anyways, that's pretty much it though. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.